Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to The Success. In today's video, we're going to be going through 8 of the worst Shark Tank pitches ever. Now without any further ado guys, I'm just going to get straight into this countdown. Number 8. Inventor Jason Woods actually brought an interesting product to his season 5 pitch. The camera bodyboard, a fully electric bodyboard that anyone could ride over the waves with ease. He brought along his cute fiance, say a slick looking prototype and a fun demonstration video, but he forgot to bring one thing a business plan of any kind should include. The sharks were riveted by the presentation until Jason began to talk numbers, because the numbers were pretty much, in a word, non-existent. Jason had not been granted a patent, had never sold a single bodyboard, and over the years he had sunk over $130,000 of his own money into prototypes. Despite having no cash flow, he was seeking a whopping $250,000 investment for a 25% stake, a valuation of well over $1 million, which he could in no way justify. While most of the sharks politely bowed out, Cuban and John were utterly scornful, with Cuban calling the inventor full of crap and John proclaiming it was the worst pitch he had ever seen on the show, although it seems likely that in his anger a previous pitcher too had escaped his mind. Number 7. Darren Johnson came into the tank on the show's pilot episode with what may have been the worst pitch anybody has ever seen. In order to remedy the annoying problem of Bluetooth headsets which can fall out of your ear, Johnson proposed a new device, the Ionic Ear, which was simply a Bluetooth device which could be implanted surgically into the user's neck below the ear. The sharks began dropping like flies. The more Johnson attempted to explain his vision, and once he was done, Barbara Corcoran asked him to explain the whole thing again for the sake of clarity. In other words, to make it clear that he was crazy. Damon John called the idea disturbing and horrific. Scenes particularly creeped out that the device would require the user to basically stick a needle-shaped charger into the ears at night to charge it, not to mention the additional surgeries that would be required to upgrade it. On Shark Tank's retrospective 100th episode, Corcoran singled out the iconic ear as being the worst pitch she could remember, and none of the other sharks could disagree. Number 6. Sharks don't often find themselves asking if a contestant is literally insane, but not every contestant can be Mark Sullivan. The self-described inventor with over 100,000 alleged inventions to his credit dropped by in season 3 to offer the sharks a chance to get in on a fascinating new technology. His Sullivan generator, which he describes as harvesting energy from the rotation of the earth. For a brief moment, he appears to have the sharks' attention before going completely off the rails with his pitch. Sullivan describes how his device sucks in and vaporizes salt water from the ocean, and then in his words, the water vapor is delivered to a vortex chamber where the Coriolis effect spins this into a hurricane which drives the turbines which makes electricity. He then went on to describe the waste products, mineral precipitate, manganese and gold. Robert Harjevic wryly summed up the idea that were being pitched. We suck in water, we make it spin really fast, and we produce electricity on one hand and gold bars on the other. Rather than shying away from the blinding sarcasm, Sullivan doubled down by saying the waste products can be $96 billion in gold. Without saying exactly how he arrived at that incredibly specific figure, he concludes laying out his plan to build 200 of his generators all over the planet, to which Kevin O'Leary promptly asked Sullivan how long Sullivan will be visiting Earth. The master inventor went on to list some of his inventions, including an artificial heart, and to claim that he almost makes money from writing music and selling handbags. Damon John quite seriously asked Sullivan if anyone had ever told him he's crazy, to which Sullivan could only reply that he doesn't drink or do drugs. O'Leary's retort of, "I'm thinking maybe you should effectively ended the cringe-inducing pit." Number 5. Mary Ellen Simons in season 1 pitch was doomed from the start into the Shark Tank. She brought a product with no sales, no demand, and no purpose. Basically a giant oversized sticky note that holds more sticky notes, insisting that this would revolutionize sticky note storage for those who work at their laptops. She immediately drew the pointed sarcasm of O'Leary, who gushed that she should keep this brilliant idea a secret before putting his poker face back on, and dropping out the remaining sharks, desperately tried to get Simon sane to convince them why this wasn't a total waste of time, to which she could only respond with canned statistics about yearly laptop sales in the US. Despite the hostile response, Barbara Corcoran, while I'm not going so far as to make an offer, at least offered encouragement by saying that she liked Simon San and thought that just maybe she had a viable product. Herjavec quickly scolded her for saying that just this type of encouragement from family and friends was probably exactly why Simon had dragged this terrible idea of a product onto national television. Number 4. Aaron McDaniel came in with a season 6 pitch that he convinced would change the real estate game forever. A crowdfunding platform for real estate investments, which he said would allow small-time investors to get in on hot properties for as little as $1,000. Barely a minute into his pitch, however, everything went awry as Cuban blurted out, "I hate it," and O'Leary got a little more specific, saying, "I smell jail time." If McDaniel thought he'll be coming away with a deal because so many of the Sharks are experienced real estate investors, he could not have been more wrong. Cuban was unable to hide his disgust throughout the entire pitch, and all of the Sharks began throwing around words like Sammy Spooky and unfair at the thought of online real estate investing with no oversight. Only O'Leary made an offer to completely rebrand the business with his own name and put up the asking price of $50,000 in exchange for 50%, not the 10% McDaniel had been seeking. McDaniel flatly refused, and the Sharks couldn't give him the boot fast enough. Number 3. James Levitt Toller and Brian Pitt came into the tank in Season 4 with a plan to secure $5 million in funding for their full-length action film revolving around the exciting idea of Motorcycle World Championship in order to really knock the Sharks dead. They knew they would need 3 things: a scantily clad girl, a silent menacing figure in a black helmet astride a motorcycle, and an exciting trailer for their film. While Mark Cuban bailed on the idea before Pitt could even complete the first sentence of his pitch, the rest of the Sharks stuck around. Perhaps out of morbid curiosity, they were then treated to the single cheesiest, worst excuse for a movie trailer anybody has ever seen. And the pitch would only get worse after screening the completely action-free trailer, which pretty much consisted of big blocky catchphrases accompanied by loud sounds. Levitt tried to salvage the situation by proclaiming Pitt kind of an expert on the subject of movies. Asked to elaborate, Pitt proceeded to stumble mightily over his words, barely sticking to his rehearsed pitch, but managing to reveal that the duo didn't even have a script or any cast or crew attached to the project. Lavatola then jumped back in to educate the Sharks on the way films are financed now, which went about as well as you might expect. Pitt managed to rein the pitch back into an extent by dropping the names for a couple of films that had been previously produced by a small indie company he had worked for, but Damon James, as a producer on The Crow, had already seen enough to know these guys had no idea what they were talking about, and they were basically chastised off the stage by the rest of the Sharks. Cuban's parting shot that he'd seen a similar deal in the Nigerian email must have hurt worse than any road rash. Number 2. New parents Ivan Barnes and Lisa Evans thought they had the next hot parenting product on their hands, but when they drove into the tank during Season 5, called quickly Squeaky Knees, it consisted of a pair of squeaky pads sewn onto the knees of toddlers' pants, which both provides padding and alerts parents to their children's whereabouts at all times. It might seem like kind of a good deal at first, until you think about it for about 5 seconds. That's roughly how long it took for Herjavec to realize and point out that it would take no time at all for the constant incessant squeaking to become incredibly annoying. I even brushed aside the criticism by saying he found the idea endearing. But when Lloyd Greener turned the talk to numbers, things got worse. After 3 long years in business, the couple had managed sales of only about 500 units, amounting to a paltry $10,000. They attempted to defend themselves by explaining that they were full-time parents with no marketing background, which didn't do them any favors. With the Sharks prompted O'Leary to spectate that they hadn't reached their sales goals because their product sucked. The Sharks dropped out quickly with only Dame and John remaining to the end of the pitch, but the couple's argumentative nature and poor defense of their business strategy ultimately caused him to bail as well. Number 1. Matty Sallen's pitch sounds halfway decent on its surface, an alarm clock that wakes you up with the smell of cooking bacon, which an informal poll taken by Sallen had revealed was the way most people would want to be woken up. The only problem was that Sallen's design amounted to an actual grill enclosed in wood that would actually cook bacon at the prescribed time in the morning. And if you can't see the potential problems with this, the Sharks certainly spotted them all right away. Aside from being an idea whose novelty would wear thin quickly when the smell of bacon grease in your bedroom became permanent, it was pointed out that such a device could potentially be a serious fire hazard. A stumbling block that Selling quite obviously had no idea how to address once the pitch reached the number crunching stage, and also came clear that the Sallen was likely to end up needing far more than he was asking for. Well, there you have it, guys. That was 10 of the worst Shark Tank pitches ever. If you did enjoy this video, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. And also make sure you don't miss out on our monthly shout out giveaway. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.